From theory to practice. According to Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharishi, Bhagwan said it is true that we are not bound. That is to say, the real self has no bondage, and it is true that you eventually return to your source. But meanwhile, if you commit sins, as you call them, you have to face the consequences. You cannot escape them. If a man beats you, can you say, I am free, I am not affected by the beating, and feel no pain? Let him continue beating. If you can really feel that, then you can do what you like. But what is the use of just saying in words that you are free? The ordainer controls the fate of souls in accordance with their prarabdha karma, destiny to be worked out in this life, resulting from the balance sheet of actions in the past life. Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen, try as you may. Whatever is destined to happen will happen, do what you may to prevent it. This is certain. The best course, therefore, is to remain silent. All the activities that the body is to go through are determined when it first comes into existence. It doesn't rest with you to accept or reject them. The only freedom you have is to turn your mind inward and renounce activities there. With reference to Bhagwan's reply to Mrs. Desai on the evening of January 3, 1946, I asked him, are only the important events in man's life, such as his main occupation or profession, determined, or are trifling acts also, such as taking a cup of water or moving from one part of the room to another? Bhagwan said everything is predetermined. Then devotee asked, then what responsibility, what free will has man? Bhagwan said, why does the body come into existence? It is designed for the various things that are marked out for it in this life. As for freedom, a man is always free not to identify himself with the body and not to be affected by the pleasures and pains consequent on its activities. Devotee said, has man any free will, or is everything in his life predetermined? Bhagwan said, free will exists together with the individuality. As long as the individuality lasts, as long as is there free will, all the scriptures are based on this fact and advise directing the free will in the right channel. Find out who is it who has free will or predestination and abide in the state. Then both are transcended. That is the only purpose in discussing these questions. To whom do such questions present themselves? Discover that and be at peace. The only path of karma, action, bhakti, devotion, yoga and jnana knowledge is to inquire who is it who has the karma, vibhakti, lack of devotion, viyoga, separation, and ignorance. Through this investigation, the ego disappears and the state of abidance in the self, in which none of these negative qualities ever existed, remains as the truth. As long as man is the doer, he also reaps the fruits of his deeds. But as soon as he realizes the self through inquiry as to who the doer is, his sense of being the doer falls away and the triple karma destiny is ended. This is the state of eternal liberation. Bhagwan said, we are all really Satchit Ananda, being knowledge bliss, but we imagine that we are bound by destiny and have all this suffering. Then author Osborne asked Raman Maharishi why we imagine this, why this state of ignorance, ajnana, comes over us. Bhagwan said, ask yourself to whom this ignorance has come, and you will discover that it never came to you, that You always have been Sachit Ananda. One goes through all sorts of austerities to become what one already is. All effort is simply to get rid of the mistaken impression that one is limited and bound by the woes of sanskara, this life. Devotee asked, is there predestination? And if what is destined to happen will happen, is there any use in prayer or effort, or should we just remain idle? Bhagwan said, there are only two ways in which to conquer destiny or be independent of it. One is to inquire who undergoes this destiny and discover that only the ego is bound by it and not the self, and that the ego is non existent. The other way is to kill the ego by completely surrendering to the Lord, by realizing one's helplessness and saying all the time, not I, but Thou, O my Lord, and giving up all sense of I and mine and leaving it to the Lord to do what He likes with you. Surrender can never be regarded as complete so long as the devotee wants this or that from the Lord. True surrender is love of God for the sake of love and for nothing else, not even for the sake of salvation. In other words, complete effacement of the ego is necessary to conquer destiny, whether you achieve this effacement through self inquiry or through bhakti marga. A young man from Colombo, Ceylon, said to Bhagwan, J. Krishnamurti teaches the method of effortless and choiceless awareness as distinct from that of deliberate concentration. Would Sri Bhagwan be pleased to explain how best to practice meditation and what form the object of meditation should take? Bhagwan said, effortless and choiceless awareness is our real nature. If we can attain that state and abide in it, that is all right. But one cannot reach it without effort, the effort of deliberate meditation. All the age old vasanas, inherent tendencies, turn the mind outwards to external objects. All such thoughts have to be given up and the mind turned inward, and that for most people requires effort. Of course, every teacher and every book tells the aspirant to keep quiet, but it is not easy to do so. That is why all this effort is necessary. Even if we find somebody who has achieved this supreme state of stillness, you may take is that you may take it that the necessary effort had already been made in a previous life. So, effortless and choiceless awareness is attained only after deliberate meditation. That meditation can take whatever form most appeals to you. See what helps you to keep out all other thoughts and adopt that for your meditation. In this connection, Bhagwan quoted some verses from the great Tamil poet and saint, the gist of which is as follows: bliss will ensue if you keep still, but however much you tell your mind this truth, it will not keep still. It is the mind that tells the mind to be still in order for it to attain bliss, but it will not do it. Though all the scriptures have said it, and though we hear it daily from the great ones and even from our Guru, we are never quiet but stray into the world of Maya, illusion, and sense objects. That is why conscious, deliberate effort is needed to attain that effortless state of stillness. Devotee asked, I want to be further enlightened. Should I try to make no effort at all? Bhagwan said, now it is impossible for you to be without effort. When you go deeper, it is impossible for you to make effort. Devotee asked, what is the difference between meditation and samadhi or absorption in the self? Bhagwan said, meditation is initiated and sustained by a conscious effort of the mind. When such effort entirely subsides, it is called samadhi. Bhagwan said, if you can keep still without engaging in any other pursuits, well and good. But if that cannot be done, what is the use of remaining inactive only with regard of realization? So long as you are obliged to be active, do not give up the attempt to realize the self. Meditation is a fight. As soon as you begin meditation, other thoughts will crowd together, gather force, and try to overwhelm the single thought to which you try to hold. This thought must gradually gain strength by repeated practice. When it has grown strong, the other thoughts will be put to fight. This is the battle always going on in meditation. So long as the ego lasts, effort is necessary. When the ego ceases to exist, actions becomes spontaneous. No one succeeds without effort. Mind control is not your birthright. Right. The few who succeed owe their success to their perseverance. Effort is necessary up to that state of realization. Even then, the self should spontaneously become evident, otherwise, happiness will not be complete. Up to that state of spontaneity, there must be effort in some form or another. Devotee said, why should I try to get realization? I shall emerge from this state of illusion just as I wake up from a dream. We do not make any effort to get out of a dream when we are asleep. Bhagwan said, in a dream, you have no inkling that it is a dream, and therefore no obligation to make an effort to get out of it. But in this life, you have some intuition based on your experience of sleep and on what you hear and read that it is a sort of dream, and this intuition imposes on you the duty of making an effort to get out of it. However, who wants you to realize the self if you don't want to? If you prefer to be in this dream, stay as you are. Devotee asked, it is said that our waking life is also a dream, similar to our dream during sleep, but in our dream we make no conscious effort to get rid of the dream and to wake up. The dream itself comes to an end without any effort on our part and we become awake. Similarly, why should not the waking state, which in reality is only another sort of dream, come to an end of its own accord without any effort on our part and land us in realization or real awakening? Bhagwan said, you're thinking that you have to make an effort to get rid of this dream of a waking state, and you're making efforts to attain realization or real awakening are all parts of the dream. When you attain realization, you will see there was neither the dream during sleep nor the waking state, but only yourself and your real state. Then devotee said, it is said that only those who are chosen for self-realization obtain it. That is rather discouraging. Bhagwan said, that only means that we cannot attain realization of the self by our own mind, unaided by God's grace. Then author Osbin interposed, Bhagwan also says that even that grace doesn't come arbitrarily, but because one has deserved it by one's own effort, either in this life or in previous ones. Then devotee asked, but human effort is said to be useless, so what incentive has a man to improve himself? Then author Osbin asked where it was said that you should make no effort or that effort was useless, and the visitor pointed to the passage in Who Am I, where it says that since the indefinable power of the Lord ordains, sustains, and controls everything. We need not worry what we shall do. I pointed out that what is deprecated there is not human effort but the feeling I am the doer. Then author asked Bhagwan whether my explanation was not right and he approved of it. Then devotee said, grace is necessary for the removal of ignorance. Bhagwan said, certainly, but grace is there all along. Grace is the self. It is not something to be acquired. All that is necessary is to know its existence. In the same way, the sun is pure brightness. It doesn't know darkness, although others speak of darkness flitting away on its approach. Like darkness, ignorance is a phantom, not real. Because of its unreality, it is said to be removed when its unreality is discovered. The sun is there and shines, and you are surrounded by sunlight. Still, if you would know the sun, you must turn your eyes in its direction and look at it. Similarly, grace is only to be found by effort, although it is here and now. Devotee asked, by the desire to surrender, increasing grace is experienced. I hope. Then Bhagwan said, surrender once for all and be done with the desire. So long as the sense of being the doer remains, desire does also. Therefore, the ego remains, but once this goes and the self shines forth in its purity, the sense of being the doer is the bondage, not the actions themselves. Be still and know that I am God. Here, stillness is total surrender without a vestige of individuality. Stillness will prevail, and there will be no agitation of the mind. Agitation of mind is the cause of desire, of the sense of being the doer, of personality. If that is stopped, there is quiet. In this sense, knowing means being. It is not relative knowledge involving the triads of knower, knowledge, and known. Devotee said, but one may not be quite sure of God's grace. Bhagwan said, if the unripe mind doesn't feel God's grace, it doesn't mean that this is absent, for that would imply that God is at times not gracious, that is to say, ceases to be God. Devotee asked, is that the same as the saying of Christ, according to thy faith be it done unto thee? Bhagwan said, quite so. Then devotee asked, the Upanishads say, I am told that he alone knows the Atma, whom the Atma chooses. Why should the Atma chooses at all? If it chooses, why some particular person? Bhagwan said, when the sun rises, some buds blossom, not all. Do you blame the sun for that? Nor can the bud blossom of itself. It requires the sunlight to enable it to do so. Devotee said, may we not say that the help of the Atma is needed because it is the Atma that drew over itself the wheel of Maya? Bhagwan said, you may say so. Then devotee asked, if the Atma has drawn the wheel over itself, should it not itself remove the wheel? Bhagwan said, it will, but who complains of being wheeled? Ask yourself that. Devotee said, why should I let the Atma itself remove the wheel? Bhagwan said, if the Atma complains about the wheel, then the Atma will remove it. Devotee asked, if the Supreme Being is omnipresent as he is said to be, his realization ought to be an easy thing. The scriptures, however, declare that without his grace the Lord cannot even be worshipped, much less realized. So then, how can the individual by his own effort realize the self or the Supreme Being, except through His grace. Bhagwan said, there was never a time when the Supreme Being was unknown or unrealized because He is one and identical with the Self. His grace or anugraha is the same as the conscious immediacy of His divine presence. Prasanata, in other words, enlightenment or revelation. One's ignorance of this self revealing immediacy of divine grace is no proof to the contrary. If the owl doesn't see the sun that illumines the whole world, is that the fault of the sun? Is it not due to the defectiveness of the bird's sight? Similarly, if the ignorant man is unaware of the ever luminous Atma or Self, can that be attributed to the nature of the Atma itself? Is it not the result of his own ignorance? The Supreme Lord is eternal grace. Therefore, there is really no such individual act as bestowing grace and being ever present. The manifestation of grace is not confined to any particular period or occasion. Devotee said, doubts keep arising, that is why I ask how it is to be done. Bhagwan said, a doubt arises and it is cleared, another arises and that is cleared, only to make way for another, and so it goes on. So there is no possibility of clearing away all doubts. Find out instead to whom the doubts come, go to their source and stay there. Then they cease to arise. That is how doubts are to be cleared away. Devotee said, only grace can help me to do it. Bhagwan said, grace is not something outside you. In fact, your very desire for grace is due to grace that is already working in you. Devotee asked, is not success dependent on the grace of the Guru? Bhagwan said, yes, but is not your practice itself due to such grace? Its fruits spring from it automatically. There is a stanza in Kevalya which runs, O Guru, you have always been with me, watching over me, one incarnation after another, and have shaped my course until I was liberated. The self manifests externally as the Guru when occasions demand, otherwise, he always remains within, doing what is required. Then, devotee said, in actual practice, I find I cannot succeed in my effort unless Bhagwan's grace descends on me. Bhagwan said, the Guru's grace is always there. You imagine it to be something somewhere high up in the sky that has to be descend, but really it is inside you, in your heart, and the moment you effect the subsidence or merging of the mind into its source by whatever method, the grace rushes forth, sprouting as from a spring within you. Hari Om Tat Sat.